Okay, my name's Maddison Campbell, and I just wanted to start by thanking David for allowing me to speak to you guys today. I just turned 15, and I feel really honored to be able to speak for you guys today. I will be presenting on judging to the standard. I was the 2018 ARBA National Intermediate Judging winner at convention. So when you're going to judge at a contest, things to bring, always have the updated standard of perfection along with any additional varieties recently added. I usually take these right out of the Domestic Rabbit magazine and just staple them or tape them into my standard with the breeds that they're for. And then a pencil and confidence. And I say confidence because how I think of it as every judge interprets the standard differently anyway, so you have just as good a chance of placing the rabbits correctly as anyone else. So just believe in yourself and have confidence and use all your knowledge that you've worked so hard for the last however long you've been doing it and just put it to good use. So tips that I have, use the breeds they post to your advantage. So before you go to judge, the convention, like at a convention, they'll usually post whatever classes you're going to be judging. So use those, and from the time they post them up until the time you go to judge, go around and talk to breeders, because at convention they have every breed that's recognized, and breeders are always willing to help you out, especially if you walk up to somebody and are like, I'm a contestant and I just need a little bit of help. Last year I had to judge a class of Britannia Petites, and I had no idea. I'm a dwarf breeder. I know they're somewhat similar, but somewhat like hugely different. So I was walking up and down the rows, and this lady was like, can I help you? And I was like, yeah, I'm a contestant and I'm a little confused. And so she had like no problem. She went down to one hole and pulled out one. It was like, here's how you pose it, and this is what you're looking for. And then she grabbed another one, and this one's lacking this. And it just really helped me, because when I was judging the class, I saw her rabbits in the class and was like, oh, I remember her commenting on this part. And it just, people are more than willing to help you, especially like we are youth, and youth have such an advantage, and we need to learn how to use it to our benefit. Another tip is keep a general idea of the placement. So as you're going through and judging the rabbits, don't look at the rabbit as the rabbit. Always be comparing to the next rabbit you have. So when I'm going through, like a conversation I would have in my head is, this one's body is wider than this one, therefore he's going to be at the top versus this one. So just always remember where you have your rabbits ranked in your head. And then the last tip I have for you is you can only have one DQ per class, like in an ARBA judging class. So if you find like white hairs in an armpit or something, you know that one has to be placed last. So being that there's only going to be one, you only have to worry about the top three. Obviously this isn't for like an actual judging class, but for a class that people have lined up for you, that's how it's going to work. But you do have to listen to your proctor, because sometimes they'll say, don't worry about mismatched toenails, or don't worry about weight. So don't waste your time with those things. Focus on something that's like a breed-specific disqualification. And then most importantly, have fun doing what you love. Like Lindsay just said, go in there and I don't want to say don't have the competitive edge, but don't worry about, oh, I have to take this and this person out to do good. Go in there and just pretend like you're evaluating your own rabbits in your barn. I'm not saying don't take it seriously, but you have to go in there with an open mind and know that you haven't learned everything and there's still so much more to learn. So just going in there and knowing that you're learning something new is going to make it most enjoyable. Okay, so specifically to judging, using the standard of perfection as your main reference is super important because you see judges at shows and they never have a closed standard. And if they don't have their standard, they're always borrowing somebody else's. It's always open to the breed because even the judges who know a lot don't know everything breed specific. They don't know everything. So they have the standard open to check back for breed specific disqualifications and stuff. And then also remind yourself of the schedule of points because say a Californian breeder who's judging a class of Netherland dwarfs may not know that body type is just as much as head and ears because on a Californian body type is the whole thing. So just reminding yourself of the schedule of points and checking back is going to help you make your classes ranked as best as possible. And then when marking your answers, you want to reread the numbers in the ears to make sure they correspond with your placings. So by this I mean there's no one who checks to make sure that 1 through 4 are in the correct order. So if the person in front of you rearranges them because it helps them visualize their class placing, you have to go back through and make sure that your first place is actually number 3 because they may not be in the correct order when you get to them. And then if you have time or extra time, use it to recheck. I'm not saying re-guess yourself. If your first instinct is that number 4 is number 1, go with that. But if you have extra time, you have quality show animals that you might not have a chance to play with at home. So if you have them in front of you, I would say, read the standard. And if you have a set of Angoras in front of you and the standard is, they need to be really dense, go through and feel because they're there. They're there for you. And you may not even have to, if you have 4 minutes extra, they're there, you might as well do something with them. Okay, so now we're going to go on to good and bad traits to look for. This isn't just in the classes, but also in your herd at home. So this is for the bulldog-headed animals, like dwarfs, Holland lops. The one on the far left is what you're looking for. It has really wide set. It's really wide set in between its eyes, so it has a massive head. The one in the middle is really narrow, and then the one on the far right has a V shape. So in a class, if these were going up against each other, it would be placed first, second, and third from left to right. The next trait is chopped versus full to the table. So the Californian on the right has nice gradual slope down to the table, and when you feel this, it'll be full and your hand will go right down to the table. But the mini Rex, you can see right here there's a line straight up, and that could be resulted from overposing. So don't overpose them, but if there's a straight line from so there's the high point and then it starts to slope off, and then if there's a straight line, that's an indicator that it's chopped. Okay, so top lines, the one on the left is over exaggerated and could be that it's underposed, but this is a very flat rabbit versus the one on the right where we can see it has the nice top line. It starts behind the shoulders, meets its high point, and then slopes off. And the one on the left is just very flat in overall body type, so that one would be placed behind the one on the right. So this is the top lines on the upright breeds. The ruby-eyed white shown on the left is very smooth and it's well-rounded, and you can tell just by looking at it compared to the one on the right, because the other one still has the high point in the right spot, maybe even push a little far forward, but then it just slopes off. So the ruby-eyed white would be, if you were judging these theoretically against each other, the ruby-eyed white would be placed higher up in the class than the otter. Okay, so hollow loin. This is one where it's more important and would be faulted harder on, on a commercial breed, because the commercial breeds are meant to have the nice meaty loin and they're supposed to be full through that section, versus on, say, a dwarf. I keep going back to dwarfs because that's what I have, but say on a dwarf where it's still a fault, but it wouldn't be faulted as heavily in my opinion. So the one on the left is like, you can tell how it goes in, and I was told that, or you can feel it when you run your hands down the rabbit. If your fingers go in that loin section, it's not as full, versus the one on the right where you wouldn't be able to feel like an indent or divot. So the one on the left would be placed farther down in the class. Okay, so taper is breed specific, I feel, because if you have like a cylindrical, you want it to be the same width all the way down. But this Californian on the left has very powerful shoulders, but doesn't quite have the hindquarter to match it. So that one has poor taper, versus the Mini Rex on the right has like the more teardrop shape, and that's what's wanted in that breed. So the Californian, even though it has really powerful shoulders, it could be good as like a pieces rabbit for breeding or whatever, but on the show, it would be better to have the one on the right. And then that takes us into shoulder positioning. So the Californian on the left, the shoulders start to rise right behind, like right at the neck, and then it takes us up to the high point and then slopes off, versus the Mini Rex has like a longer portion. You can see where it's flat at the shoulder, and that's something that could be resulted in how you pose the animal, but it's also structurally how it's built. So the Mini Rex, if you were judging these two against each other, the Mini Rex, in my opinion, would be placed farther back in the class versus the Californian. Okay, so being narrow, this is how a narrow rabbit would look from the top. So the Mini Rex on the left is just a narrow rabbit throughout. The shoulders, like even though the shoulders match the midsection because it's both narrow, the depth and width should match each other. So this rabbit would be not harmonious and not balanced, and they should be. And then the French Lop on the right has just narrow shoulders compared to its hindquarter. So theoretically, if I was judging these two rabbits against each other, I would probably place the one on the right higher up in the class, because at least it has the hindquarter. It just doesn't quite compare to the front of the animal. And the Mini Rex, the one on the left, is just narrow throughout, so it's not as pleasing to judge. Okay, so I have two examples of peeking too far forward. This one, the high point is kind of undefined on this one, because it should be, the high point should be pushed back to over to the hip, and this one's kind of in the midsection. And then the next one is, the high point is almost over the shoulder, which just causes it to slope off. So these rabbits, the Californian that was shown first, I would place, if they were going up against each other, I'd place that one, like that one would be third and this one would be fourth, only because the high point was a little bit farther back on the last one, but this one, and it could be because of how it's posed, but it's really far forward, and it just causes it to slope off and look not pleasing. Okay, so being pinched is another thing, and being pinched, so the one on the right is just like, it's a narrow rabbit to begin with, and then it has a pinched hindquarter, and you can tell because it cuts in at the, like where it meets the table, and you can even see it a little bit on the Californian, but this one would be called slightly pinched by judges because it's not like quite as drastic, but you can still tell that it's not like full to the table. So if these two were going up against each other, I would place the one on the right farther back in the class than the one on the left. And you can tell most of these things from a back feet analysis. So if you simply flip the rabbit over, the ideal one is shown in the top left, where it's very wide set and it has thick bone, and the feet are parallel. And then the one in the middle on the top, where the feet are closer together, you would have a narrow hindquarter. And then the top right, where the feet are still wide set but they're V'd, you would have a pinched hindquarter. The first one on the bottom, where the ankles are just thin, you would have thin bone or fine bone. And then the bottom middle is where the feet are long and then thin. You would have thin and long bone. And this would be like almost like a brood type animal. And the very last one is where it's narrow and it's V'd. You would have a pinched and narrow hindquarter. And most likely you would also have a hollow loin on that one. So this is placed like that would be the top one would be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth if you had them all in the same class. So this one is like the ideal rabbit. This would be my top class winner if I had it. It has good depth and width, so this would be at the top, but you would still have to look at the side profile and stuff. But because it's not pinched, it just looks smooth, it's not hollow, this would be my class winner. Any questions?
You have a very good eye.
Oh, thank you.
Very good.
That means a lot.
Photos are excellent.
Thank you. Any questions?
Question, go ahead.
Oh my God.
How long have you been raising rabbits?
5 years. Oh, no. Oh my gosh. Are there any other questions?
How did you learn all this?
Well, I've judged under David a couple times, and then his rabbit tutor things have helped me a lot. And then just evaluating my own rabbits, and
Do you come from a livestock background?
no.
It's natural.
I don't know.
And similar to the things that, like Lindsay said, of like having mentors in the hobby, I know that you have so
Yeah.
a lot that definitely support you.
Yes.
But I know that you work extremely hard in order to learn what you had.
Uh-huh.
I still remember last year at the same conference where she had an entire notebook filled out by the time.
Oh yeah, I did. A lot of good information.
Yeah. Are there any more questions before? Go ahead.
Mhm.
I'm from the UK, so I don't know if breed standards that much. But can you tell me how important do you think it is to get the right breeding stock before you start on your career in the rabbits?
I think that's very important, but also just like working with what you have makes you stronger almost. Because I've personally gotten stock from everywhere, and not getting it from one specific breeder who wins all the time makes it that much better when you do win. And putting that extra work in and like pulling certain pieces and making the best rabbit you possibly can out of what you have, to me, is almost better than just buying really good stock and just going right into it and just winning because you know that's what you're going to have.
My answer to that question you just give me would be, if I sell a trio, I want them to keep that trio pure.
Right.
Because I've spent 20
Yeah.
years breeding that breed,
For sure.
and it's on its way up.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, you've invested in
Right.
that goodwill from that person.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the UK, there's a lot of people who go window shopping, as I call it,
Yeah.
buying from the people who are winning at one particular time.
Right.
Keeping faith in that person they pick from, and for the people they could have picked from.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maddison.
Thank you so much for having me.